What's up, everybody? I'm going to try to help with the FPS issue, especially with AMD users. Intel probably has an issue, but not near as much. I have a 7700X with a 470 Ti, and currently I'm around 130, 140, depending on the map. Then I jumped to 170, then I jumped to 300 on the corners of the map. But when you're over your base, for some reason, the game starts to have a memory leak or something. Optimization just throttles your FPS. I was a competitive FPS player in Siege. I hate lag, I hate ping, and I hate FPS drops just as much as Happy does. I have been going out of my way to try to figure out what the actual issue is because I was putting up with it for a while, but I couldn't do it anymore. Autumn Leaves is one of the worst maps when it comes to FPS. If you have the issue, don't know why. I know it might be the tile set. Amazonia and Autumn Leaves obviously have different tile sets, so I know Shallow Grave is another terrible map. Currently, right now, I have 100, maybe 80. I saw 120 when I started. The issue isn't, okay, I have this much FPS. Most people will be like, you have 160 FPS. That's way more than I do, or that's what... It's not the issue. When I'm going to the corner of the map, I'm at 350. When I'm out on the map, I'm at 200. And then when I'm back over here, I am back at whatever this is going to be. So when you're moving around, as you can see, I just saw 128. It's going to fluctuate way too much and your game's not going to be smooth. And if your game's not smooth, you can't click on the right things at the right time. And that's kind of what this game is all about. If you're out on the map, you come back to your base, you go back out on the map, and if you stutter, not having a fluid motion, very unpleasant experience. We're just gonna make some buildings. The more buildings you make, the lower the FPS will eventually be. So by the time you're tier 3, you're gonna have a lot more buildings and it's even worse. So what we need to do is find out which cores on our computer are our fastest cores. Every computer has 2 cores that are faster than other ones. And right now, for some reason, optimization, at least on AMD, the game is not communicating with the computer saying, I need these cores. The computer's saying, here's your cores. And the game's like, I don't really know how to use them. We need to tell it to specifically use these cores and only these cores. So I disabled SMT. You can do that in the BIOS. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it makes it easier. You can do this with Task Manager or a different program called Process Lasso, which will be a little bit more advanced. The priority for CPU is the easiest thing people think of, but that's not going to change much. If you look at my FPS still, it did nothing. This program in particular has a tool, because you will need one in some type of way, that will let you test what thread or core you are strongest at. We're going to start. Right now, my core is 2. 4 just seems a little bit higher, but I've seen it also before it comes down here, so I feel like 8 is always around the same spot. I'm okay with that. Core 2 is my fastest core by a lot, so we need to make sure that one's being used. And we're also going to tell it to use 8, but remember, 8 is 7, because we have, obviously, CPU 0 and then CPU 1. That's another story, though. We're going to exit. We're going to go to CPU sets. Now, this is something you can do on this program. If you use Task Manager, you won't use this because I don't think it lets you. But this is like a soft version of limiting the computer 2 and 7. When you watch my FPS, now the game is using the correct cores, and my FPS is not dropping any type of way. And if it is, it's dropping to like 350. That means I'm in the same range. That's fine. I'm not going to notice that. The game's going to be smooth. I'm going to be able to move my units, and I'm not going to be going back and forth between 115 and 300 and having a terrible time. So if you want to do this with Task Manager, you want to go to Details. I believe it's called Details. Yep. Details. Find your game. Go to Set Affinity and turn off all processors, and we use 2 and 7, right? 2 and 7, and that will, if I can take this off, you'll see that it's still working because Task Manager is still doing technically the same thing. I believe it saves for the game. Let's find out if Task Manager will save for every single time, so you don't have to redo it every time. So it's not. So we need to go back and set the affinity again. So you will have to do this every time if you do not have Process Lasso or another program that will strictly bind cores, but it takes 2 seconds, you know. All right, back to 2.7. And 2.7 are just my highest cores. You might be 3.4 or 6.5. It doesn't matter as long as it's your best cores. And you will be back to stable FPS, and you won't have to worry anymore about the terrible experiences of FPS drops. Hopefully this helps everybody. Remember, this is something you might not even notice until I have shown you. This is kind of an older game. Not everybody cares too much, but there are a lot of people that have very obvious issues with this, and I'm hoping this will help them figure that out.